I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network, and what do we always say here that MAGA stands for? Make attorneys, get attorneys, and we have yet another example of that. And we've learned about this other Trump lawyer who now has lawyers, and this lawyer who's now invoking his Fifth Amendment rights. We learned about it from the federal case that Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss filed against Rudy Giuliani in Washington, D.C. federal court for Giuliani's defamatory statements about them. And so the lawyer that we're talking about here is not Rudy Giuliani, although, as you know, Rudy Giuliani needs his own legal counsel, and he is under criminal investigation for a myriad of reasons, including his role in Georgia and across the country in trying to interfere with the free and fair election in 2020 and to try to overthrow our democracy. But I'm actually talking about another lawyer, a lawyer by the name of Ray Smith III. Now, who's Ray Smith III? Ray Smith III was Donald Trump's lead lawyer in Georgia, who filed the frivolous challenges Donald Trump brought to try to overthrow the election in Georgia, and that lawsuit was summarily rejected. And Ray Smith was also with the fake electors in December, these MAGA Republican fake electors who fraudulently affixed their names and signatures to a phony electoral certificate claiming that Donald Trump won Georgia, when in fact President Joe Biden won Georgia. So the Fulton County District Attorney is focused on all of these issues: the fake elector scheme, Donald Trump filing these frivolous lawsuits. And not only was the lawsuit a frivolous lawsuit, but also seems to be have a lot of unlawful conduct involved in the filing of this lawsuit. So you may recall that in connection with the January 6th committee subpoena of another Trump lawyer, John Eastman, Eastman tried to block that subpoena, and Eastman claimed the attorney-client privilege as a reason why he was not turning over his emails and communications to the January 6th committee. So John Eastman, another Trump lawyer, is another example of make attorneys, get attorneys. So he had an attorney. He filed a federal lawsuit in California in the Central District to try to block the January 6th committee from getting his emails and text messages and communications. And federal judge David Carter made a ruling that the crime fraud exception to attorney-client privilege applied, compelling John Eastman to turn over his emails and communications. So why is that relevant to what I'm talking about? You'll see it's all connected, because in John Eastman's emails that he did not want to turn over to the January 6th committee, it was revealed that he and Trump's other lawyers were aware that the declaration Trump was filing under penalty of perjury in the 2020 Georgia cases, the frivolous cases that Trump was filing there, that Trump knowingly submitted a false declaration. He committed perjury, and he included data in his declaration about dead people voting and people who he claimed shouldn't have voted, who voted, that Donald Trump and the legal team knew was false. And so that's why federal judge David Carter said the crime fraud exception applied, because all of the lawyers acknowledged that they would be basically facilitating Donald Trump engaging in perjury in this declaration. And Ray Smith was the lead lawyer in Georgia for Donald Trump in 2020, filing these frivolous lawsuits and trying to challenge the results of the 2020 election with these lies, knowingly and maliciously. So why is this being discovered in the Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman federal defamation lawsuit against Rudy Giuliani? We're showing you all the connections here. That's because they are conducting discovery of third parties who have potentially relevant information to their defamation lawsuit against Rudy Giuliani. And one of the witnesses who they want to depose is Ray Smith III, who was Donald Trump's lawyer in Georgia and who was involved in communications with Rudy Giuliani and others in Donald Trump's inner circle. And in connection with that discovery process, in connection with trying to subpoena Ray Smith III and take his deposition, Ray Smith III, like many of these MAGA Republican witnesses, tried to avoid the subpoena at first and then said to speak with his lawyer. And the first lawyer that contacted Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman's lawyer is a lawyer by the name of Bruce Morris. And then Bruce Morris then told Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman's lawyer that Ray Smith III, this Trump lawyer who was involved in filing these frivolous lawsuits in Georgia and who was there with the fake electors, that Ray Smith III was a potential target in the Fulton County District Attorney's ongoing criminal investigation, where a special purpose grand jury has already made recommendations for criminal indictments, and where the Fulton County District Attorney is currently preparing the case to go before a traditional grand jury with the power to make criminal indictments. And so Bruce Morris said that since his client, Ray Smith, is somewhere between a witness and a target, that Ray Smith would have to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. So they were going to move to quash the subpoena, to try to block the deposition subpoena from Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman. Thereafter, a new lawyer emerged in this picture. Ray Smith has multiple lawyers. MAGA, make attorneys, get attorneys, multiple attorneys. A new lawyer, someone by the name of Randy Evans, who identifies himself as retired Ambassador Randy Evans. And if you look at Randy Evans' background, just do a search on where was he an ambassador and who appointed him to the ambassadorship. Who do you think? Donald Trump appointed Randy Evans to become the ambassador of Luxembourg. So this new lawyer, Randy Evans, emerged and says he's now going to be representing Ray Smith III. It'll be interesting to look into whether Randy Evans, like many of these other lawyers, is being paid by one of Donald Trump's political action groups. We will research that and report back to you. But this is someone clearly in Donald Trump's inner circle, or at least in Donald Trump's orbit, having been appointed to the ambassadorship of Luxembourg by Donald Trump. And at first, Randy Evans had told the lawyers for Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman that Ray Smith would show up for a limited deposition where he would just invoke his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination on a number of topics. And they were going to try to hold that on or around May 16th. And then they'd kind of just get it over with. This way, Ray Smith could be done with the deposition. And then, out of nowhere, Randy Evans basically responded, you know what, we're not going to make him available anymore, and sorry, too bad. Why was Randy Evans doing that? Well, the deadline for discovery in the Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman case is May 22nd or May 23rd. So that deadline is coming up. And so one of the tactics that Trump and people in his orbit use is try to delay, and then basically say, sorry, we can't do it, and you missed your deadline. And so Ruby Freeman and Shaye Moss's lawyers, they had to file a motion to the federal judge, and it's Judge Beryl Howell. See all the connections here? Judge Beryl Howell, that name may sound familiar to you. She used to be the chief judge in the Washington, D.C. federal courthouse that presided over the criminal grand jury proceedings, but she still remains a federal judge, even though she's no longer the chief judge that presides over these criminal grand juries, but she's the federal judge on this case. And so Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman's lawyer did the smart thing. As soon as Randy Evans informed them that their client, Ray Smith III, was not going to sit for this deposition. They informed the court right away. And so that is how we learned all of this information. And so if we pull up the motion right here that was filed by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, again, it's in the defamation case against Rudy Giuliani. And the motion is entitled Plaintiff's Unopposed Motion for an Order Permitting Plaintiffs to Notice for Deposition and Depose Third-Party Ray Smith after the close of fact discovery and for clarification on the scheduling order. Again, Ray Smith III was Donald Trump's lawyer in Georgia in 2020, who was representing Donald Trump and making these phony and fraudulent claims about the 2020 election to try to overthrow the free and fair election. Again, Ray Smith III was with the fake electors in December of 2020 when they affixed their names to this fraudulent electoral certificate. He was also involved in the frivolous litigation where Donald Trump committed perjury, which we've learned from the federal case in California in connection with John Eastman's subpoena by the January 6th committee. That's why all this stuff builds on top of each other and where these connections can be made. And in this motion, they talk about basically what I just said, what transpired, how beginning in April 19, 2023, plaintiff's counsel spoke with Ray Smith about the deposition. Mr. Smith responded that we'll have a response for you by week's end. And then the lawyer, Mr. Morris, Bruce Morris, emerges on May 1st, 2023. And Mr. Morris then says that he would likely file a motion to quash because Mr. Smith was, quote, something between a target and a witness in the Fulton County District Attorney's investigation of the 2020 election. On May 3rd, 2023, plaintiff sent Mr. Morris a copy of the subpoena and asked him to inform them by the close of business on May 4th if he was authorized to accept service. Then on May 5th, Randolph Evans, he comes into the picture, Randy Evans. He emails the plaintiff's lawyer for Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, and he wants to discuss the situation and hopefully resolve this, save everybody a lot of time and expense. They talk about a streamlined deposition that would take place on May 16th. Then on May 12th, 2023, plaintiff forwarded a revised subpoena to Mr. Evans, and that's right around the time where plaintiff's lawyer doesn't hear from Mr. Evans over the weekend. And then on May 15th, after not hearing from him, plaintiff's lawyer reaches out, and then Evans is like, he's not sitting for a deposition. You know, we're not responding to that at all. There's an email that's attached as an exhibit as well, Exhibit 1, where Randy Evans tries to put forward his position and says, I know this is going to be an exhibit. I want to clarify my position. But it seems like starting back in April, they just tried to drag the plaintiff's lawyers along here and then hope the plaintiff's lawyers would miss a deadline. It was all part of a concerted strategy here. Look, I think that the judge, Beryl Howell's, ultimately going to order that Ray Smith III show up for the deposition if he has to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights or other privileges that he may assert. He may try to assert attorney-client privilege. But remember, there's been another federal finding by Judge David Carter multiple months ago that the crime fraud exception applies at least to John Eastman. So not sure if it's going to be a valid attorney-client privilege claim, given that there was that other federal court finding. I doubt it. But in any event, he can invoke his Fifth Amendment rights, but he's going to have to at least go through that process. I think that's the order that we're going to see. But in any event, from all of this, we've learned that the Fulton County District Attorney, Phony Willis, has at least let Ray Smith know that he's somewhere between a witness and a target in connection with her ongoing criminal investigation. The full grand jury in the Fulton County District Attorney's investigation has not yet met. Remember, the special purpose grand jury issued its report. It's mostly all redacted. We don't know who has been recommended to be indicted. It's a two-step process in Georgia. Step one, if you go through the special purpose grand jury, it's a two-step process. Step one would be the special purpose grand jury. They make recommendations. Those recommendations can go to the actual grand jury, which has the power to indict. And the traditional grand jury, like the grand jury in Manhattan, for example. And then you could put other witnesses before the grand jury as well. And we expect, based on prior letters and statements by the Fulton County District Attorney, those indictments will likely occur sometime between July and September. And I think we'll probably see that closer to August there. But we learned about Ray Smith being a potential target here. Yet another Trump lawyer. Make attorneys get attorneys. But in this entire video that I've made, just think about all the players and Trump's lawyers, right? You've got John Eastman, make attorneys get attorneys, who's under criminal investigation. You've got Rudy Giuliani, make attorneys get attorneys, under criminal investigation, multiple. You now have Ray Smith, make attorneys get attorneys, under criminal investigation. And then you have this retired ambassador, Randy Evans, who's now stepped in to represent a Donald Trump lawyer, a Trump-appointed ambassador now representing a Trump lawyer under criminal investigation. So all of those links are important in our overall understanding of what's taking place and the moves that are happening. But one thing is clear, that, look, you enter Trump's orbit at your own peril. And I don't understand why all of these lawyers are doing this and losing their reputations and their legal licenses, working with someone who doesn't pay them, who is a menace to our democracy and is just a constant liar and constantly throwing them under the bus, at the very least. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you for listening diligently and watching as we connect all of those pieces. I think it's important and kind of also tests our combined aggregate learning from all of the other videos. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers together. Help us get there. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, wherever you get podcasts. Also search for the MeidasTouch podcast. The podcast downloads are just crushing it lately. So thank you for all of the people who downloaded the MeidasTouch podcast. Keep at it. And if you haven't downloaded it yet, check it out. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas. Hit subscribe on YouTube. It's free, and have a great day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.